So thank you, Paul, for joining us. Paul Homer is the director for sales operations at Auth0. Paul, you want to just give us a little bit of background on how you ended up in this space?
Yeah, sure. So I started as a software sales rep, moved up to sales management, and then I was at a company that had 400 quota-bearing sales reps and had zero sales operations. And so a former VP that I'd reported to called me one day and said, "You're going to help me build sales ops at this company." I'm like, "What is sales operations?" And so that was my intro to it. We built sales ops at that company, and now I'm on a couple companies later where I've had the opportunity to build sales operations from the ground up, rather than trying to break bad habits at a large company that didn't have operations.
So, how many salespeople were there when you joined Auth0?
At Auth0, there were 3 salespeople.
And today?
We are at about 30, and we'll be double that by the end of next year.
And you got presence outside Americas as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
For teams?
Yeah, we have boots on the ground in Latin America, in Australia, in the UK, in Germany. So yeah, very global workforce.
So like one of the things that's always been interesting about talking to you, I think we've known each other for a while now, is that whenever I talk to you, like I'm in the middle of my sales kickoff, I'm getting ready for a sales planning, and most places, companies that side, right, they don't spend a lot of time on sales planning side. They're like, okay, sales operations, let's make the horses go faster, kind of a thing. But you do take a lot of time on the planning side itself, right? Why is that?
If you're not planning, sales operations becomes a service desk. Something is broken, or I want to make this individual thing better. You spend all of your time break fix, or you spend all of your time making small improvements. And if you don't spend a tremendous amount of time in the planning phase and doing it early, you can never get ahead because there's always so much to do.
Okay.
And so I see planning as an investment in the overall ability for a team to produce within a year. If you're taking the extra time, and it's always hard to find that time to plan, you might take one step back and you're going to take 3 forward over the next 12 months, because then what you're improving is not those little things, is you're putting in improvements that will scale, and you're thinking about where are we going to be 12, 18 months from now, rather than trying to fix a problem that's you're going to fix again in 3 months. So it really is an investment of time and making sure that your decisions are forward-looking, and then the work that you're doing that comes out of that planning is dedicated to getting that strategy done.
So were you spending as much time on planning when you were like 3, or the time probably has gone more in terms of planning is more complicated, but the discipline of planning itself, were you invested in when you were 3 people versus now that you're 30?
The categories are the same, actually. So I copied my list of my checklist for the new year planning from last year, and I added a couple little things to it.
Okay.
But you're still having to think about segmentation, territories, comp plans, go-to-market strategy, account-based marketing. It's all the same stuff. It's just, it's a lot simpler when you're small. You're making fewer decisions. Now, we've got a lot of different roles. The decisions are increasing, but if you're kind of working from that baseline, it can remain manageable for a while.
So as you've seen the journey of Auth0 and even prior places, right, with your Smartsheet before this, who all have generally been involved in the planning process, and who is driving it? Like, over here, are you driving it? Is it finance? Is the leadership team? Who's driving it and who's involved?
It has definitely depended on the team that I've worked with.
Okay.
At one company it might be finance, at another company it might be sales. Currently I'm very fortunate to be in a position that finance and sales work very closely together.
Okay.
And we started early. We started our 2019 planning at the end of July, starting to think about what are the big changes we want to make in strategy, in roles, and we have our headcount plan done for next year, and have had that done for weeks. And so, okay, headcount's done. Well, now we can figure out quotas, and now we can figure out territories, and it kind of started with what's our company going to do on the finance side.
Okay.
What are our revenue goals, and then you just figure out how to get there from tops down and bottoms up.
So obviously it's a great fast-growing company, right? So your CEO and team and the board is probably looking at the numbers on a quarterly basis and trying to figure out, can we go faster, can we? So do you end up seeing yourself updating your plans and redoing them every quarter?
Yeah, at least twice a year, but usually more than that.
More than that.
Yeah.
So you're getting buy-in from your CEO down as well in terms of planning. And how do you guys? How does a team itself, right, your leadership team, keep this culture of transparency alive to sort of see how you're doing against plan?
As a company, I think we're good at sort of radical transparency. It's one of our values. We have all hands meetings frequently. We had one Monday where the CEO is saying, here was our plan, here's our financial plan, here are the strategic goals that we have for the company, and here's the scorecard of how we're doing against every one of those things. And so from a high level, that visibility is great. And end of every quarter, our Chief Revenue Officer posts a huge note about, here are all the things we did well, here's where we did against target, here's all the things we did poorly that we're working on. And so it's simple enough to keep up with it. The details of that are sometimes hard to share because there's so much to it.
So is sales operations supporting that function of making sure the CRO and everybody else knows how we plan, performing to plan? And how much time does it take you every quarter to sort of get that work done?
It's a lot of time. I mean, it is. Well, it's an investment.
Okay.
And I feel like it's an investment in time, and it's going to save time later. It is still intensive. It's a lot of work, and we do our best to be proactive and build maybe a dashboard that's going to last us for 12 months that says, here's how we're doing against this measure that we had. But the time to do that work initially is still, it's a lot of work.
And how much time do you spend in defining policies, codifying policies, and then actually making sure that we can keep them up in sync?
That's one that I feel like we could do better on.
Okay.
We will, during our planning, we will say, here are the goals that we have. Here's how we're going to get there. But there really are a lot of decisions that have to be made where you say, this decision or this exception or something's going to come up in the future, and we often have conversations about that rather than saying, oh, here's the decision, here's the policy. We don't even have to discuss it because the policy's there.
So having a policy will give you a more agile kind of way of handling your go-to-market changes.
Yeah, I would think so, and I think that's a discipline that you have, is creating those policies and making sure that those are enforced throughout the year. We honestly have too many discussions about things that we really should sit down and document. Yep.
So someone looking to sort of embrace sales ops as a discipline within the company for the leadership, what would be something that you would say you would expect from the leadership to say, if you want sales ops, if you want better alignment in planning and execution, these are the things that you should invest in early on?
I think there's a common misconception that sales operations is it's the group of people that manage Salesforce. And a lot of people think sales operations is, I'm going to configure Salesforce, or I'm going to help people with tickets if something's broken in Salesforce. Sales operations is way, way more than that, and I think that mentality that the operations team isn't there to be a service desk. They're there to help drive sales growth and help the company hit their revenue goals and make sure that the trains run on time. You really need to invest in people that have that mindset around planning and spend the time doing it. Organized folks that can do that early, and those that don't see it as tools. Sales operations is not a collection of tools. Tools are there to support the strategy,
Yeah.
and sales operations should be about the strategy first and the planning, and the tools just help make sure that gets done well.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very instructive. I think, supporting coming top down, starting like you said, you pick a revenue number, define a strategy, define the policies, and then enforce and drive and scale. Then take a tool that works. I think, that's good. Thank you.
yeah, of course.